Hi everyone, my name is Anna, and I'm a 30-year-old living in San Antonio, Texas. Soon, I'm planning to relocate. I recently emerged from a challenging marriage of a year and a half, which I could only leave with my dad and the police's help. I blame myself for getting into that situation. Perhaps if I had been wiser, I would have avoided it altogether. I've always been quiet and reserved, preferring my computer and the online world to socializing. Rarely did I go out to pubs, and when I did, I was cautious about strangers trying to befriend me, fearing the potential dangers they could pose. I lost my mother to a heart condition when I was just 7 years old, leaving my dad, a Navy SEAL since he was 25, to raise me. His job often took him on long voyages, leaving us behind, but he always tried to stay connected through letters and calls. After my mom passed away, he returned home to find me inconsolable. He did everything to comfort me, promising that everything would be okay now that he was back. Despite his efforts, the loss deeply affected both of us. I remember seeing him overwhelmed with grief for the first time when I had a playground accident. He took a short break from work to be with me, then left me in my grandmother's care, who looked after me in his absence. He asked me to be good to her and promised to return soon, instructing my grandmother to teach me how to bake and cook my favorite treats. I promised to learn and eagerly awaited his return, holding on to the memories of the care and lessons from both my dad and grandmother. When my dad had to leave again, he reassured me with a promise to try out the dishes I'd learned to make, igniting a small spark of excitement in me despite his departure. "I have to go now, my car is waiting. Take care of yourself, honey," he said. And then he was off, promising to return in about 7 months. True to his word, he would send me gifts and souvenirs from his travels, each one a little story of its own, making his presence felt despite the distance. I spent most of my time indoors, assisting my grandmother with her tasks, preferring the solitude of our home over the company of other children. As time went on, I found solace in my own company, with the internet becoming my window to the world beyond. My father eventually decided it was time for me to return to our family home. But my reluctance to engage with the world outside didn't wane. College felt like a burden, and social interactions drained me. Online, however, I thrived. The digital world allowed me to explore endless stories and connect with people on my terms, without the fear of judgment for my introverted nature. It was here, in this vast network of anonymous friends, that I found my tribe, individuals who understood the comfort of distance and the joy of shared interests. The internet for me became a global village, connecting me with people from all walks of life. Their diverse backgrounds and stories were endlessly fascinating, highlighting our shared humanity amidst our differences. It was a testament to the power of technology to bridge the widest of divides, to bring people together in ways previously unimaginable. In this digital expanse, I met Brian, a streamer, or so he introduced himself. Our friendship began with texts before advancing to video calls, where we both chose to conceal our identities. I donned a Batman mask, while he opted for a scarf and beanie. "Hi, Anna. It's great to see you finally," he greeted. "Hello, Brian. Nice to meet you." "Virtually," I replied, the nerves evident in my voice. "Likewise. So, how are you doing today? Chat with many people?" he asked, his tone light and friendly. "I'm doing okay, just a bit nervous, to be honest," I admitted. "That's completely normal, but trust me, I don't bite. I'm as awkward as you are," he assured me, easing the tension. Our conversation flowed naturally from there, a mix of curiosity and shared awkwardness making it easier to open up. "Tell me more about yourself, Brian. How did you find yourself in this online world?" I asked, eager to learn more about the person behind the screen. Our dialogue, marked by mutual understanding and a shared sense of belonging, underscored the unique connections possible in the digital age, where even the most reserved can find a place and a voice. I've always had a fascination with meeting new people and understanding different viewpoints. However, I find myself spending a lot of time at home, which makes the online community a fantastic avenue to explore those interests. "What about you?" I asked. "Well, I'm pretty introverted, so interacting in person can be a bit tough for me. The online world feels safer, and it's easier for me to express myself," I explained. It was comforting to know virtual connections could offer meaningful interactions. Discovering we had crossed paths felt like a small stroke of fate. As we continued our conversation, finding shared interests and exchanging life stories, I felt increasingly comfortable. The ease of our interaction was surprising. I didn't expect to feel so at ease talking with someone online. "Thanks for making it so natural," I said, genuinely grateful. "The feeling's mutual, Anna. You're easy to talk to, and I'm glad we met. If you ever want to chat, I'm usually around playing Mario. Oh, and do you game? He inquired. I'd enjoy that, Brian. But no, I mostly spend my time blogging and browsing Reddit. There's so much you can learn from the experiences others share there, I shared, highlighting my preference for soaking in diverse perspectives online. True. Sometimes our own lives seem so mundane in comparison. I trust my online friends more than my offline ones. What I love about online interactions is the freedom. They're without obligation. You can engage or take a step back, as you prefer, Brian added, a sentiment I deeply resonated with. Through our discussions, Brian and I formed a genuine bond, one that felt as real as any friendship formed in person. This virtual connection, founded on mutual understanding and an open mind, felt like it had the power to bridge any distance between screens. I'm curious to see where this online journey will take me, but one thing is clear. The experiences and lessons from my digital sanctuary have fundamentally shaped me. These learnings will forever be a part of who I am as I venture through life. However, my dad is quite cautious and traditional. If he discovered I was forming friendships with people I've never met in person, he'd be far from pleased. The last time he visited, he took the opportunity to give me a lecture over dinner. "How are your studies going, Dove?" he asked. "Dad, I've graduated, but you wouldn't know. You couldn't make it," I replied, a touch of sadness in my voice. "Oh, Anna, I know I missed it, and I'm truly sorry. I was caught up with work, but please know I regret not being there," he apologized, his remorse genuine. Despite our differences, the bond we shared was strong, a mix of love, concern, and a deep, if sometimes challenging, understanding. I even dropped you an email about coming for your birthday. "Tomorrow's my pumpkin's big day, huh?" "Please, stop with the old names." "I'm not 9 anymore," I protested, feeling a bit embarrassed. "In my eyes, you'll always be my little dove. But let's talk about what's next for you. Have you thought about working or?" he asked, changing the subject. "I'm not sure yet," I replied, a hint of uncertainty in my voice. "What do you mean, not sure? What are your peers up to these days?" "I don't have friends," I admitted, feeling a bit isolated. He was taken aback. "Listen, I didn't send you to live at your mom's house just so you could avoid the world. There's so much out there, so many people to meet. You're missing out by staying in." "That's just it, Dad. I don't know how to meet people. I mean, I have friends, but they're all online." "Online? Anna, that's not the best way to make friends," he sighed, a mix of concern and frustration in his voice. "Okay, what if we went out for some shopping today? Just the two of us. It's been a while since I've gone out," he suggested, trying to encourage me. "I'm not sure I'm ready for that." I hesitated, the thought of stepping outside my comfort zone daunting. "Come on, Anna. You need to try. Staying cooped up isn't good for you. Ever since your mom Isabella passed, you've changed," he said, gently trying to push me forward. "Why bring Mom into this? What are you implying?" I snapped, feeling a sudden surge of anger. "I'm not implying anything, sweetheart. I'm just saying that we need to find ways to move forward despite our loss," he replied calmly, trying to soothe the tension. But his words only fueled my anger. I slammed my hand on the table, stood up, and didn't bother to finish my meal. "Anna, don't treat your father like that. I'm just trying to help," he pleaded, but I was too upset to listen. "You don't understand me at all, so don't even try," I retorted, my emotions boiling over. Frustrated and seeking solace, I turned to my online world to chat with Brian. Brian had always been kind and understanding. It was comforting to have someone willing to listen, especially as I navigated the complex feelings of grief and isolation. Being an introvert, I found peace in the quiet of my home and the presence of my computer screen, even as the world outside continued to move forward. I found solace in my digital sanctuary, where I could truly be myself without the daunting pressure of face-to-face interactions. My dad, however, had been encouraging me more and more to step outside my online world. Ever since I admitted to him how much of my life was spent online, I knew he'd struggle to understand. He believed that confining myself to my room was limiting my growth and experiences, urging me to venture beyond what was comfortable to me, a thought that filled me with anxiety. I shared my frustrations with Brian, hoping he'd grasp my situation. "Hey, Anna, would you like to meet up? We're both introverts, so we could find a quiet place, somewhere not crowded. I know just the spot," he suggested. The idea caught me off guard. "I'm not sure, it feels sudden. I need time to think about it," I replied, uncertain. "No pressure, take your time. Whenever you're ready, Just let me know. Here's my address. You're always welcome. Brian responded, with patience and understanding. Why are you so kind to me? I'm practically a stranger, I questioned, puzzled by his warmth. Because I genuinely like you. I know it might sound odd coming from me, but I'd like to get to know you better. Whenever you feel the same, you know where to find me, he said, his sincerity striking a chord within me. Deciding to meet Brian was a monumental step for me. As I approached his home, my heart raced with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Surprisingly, he lived quite close, only a 35-minute drive away. Taking a deep breath to muster my courage, I knocked on his well-worn wooden door, which creaked open to reveal Brian's welcoming smile. His warmth immediately lessened my anxiety. Brian was unexpectedly charming, and while his home wasn't outwardly impressive, it possessed a certain lived-in charm that felt genuinely inviting. The interior revealed much about him. Shelves lined with beloved classic books, a collection of board games, and a well-set-up computer space. Welcome. My humble abode is honored by your presence, my fair. Master, he joked, attempting some game lingo. I might not catch all the gaming references, but thank you. Your place is cozy. Do you live here alone? I inquired, stepping into his world. No, my fair princess, I share it with my mom, he replied, his tone light, inviting me further into his life and home. A gesture that bridged the gap between our online connection and the new, unfolding reality of our friendship. Brian lives with his mom on the ground floor, while he has the top floor all to himself. He invited me over to show me around, and we spent the whole day getting to know each other better. Our in-person meeting made our bond stronger, and I found myself truly valuing the person I'd met online. Brian's kindness and humor were just as I had imagined, making me appreciate his company even more. As the evening approached, Brian suggested a walk in the nearby park. This relaxed me further, transforming my initial nerves into comfort. Being with him felt like a natural progression of our online conversations, yet there was a new closeness that you could only get from being together in person. During our walk, I mentioned not celebrating my birthday due to a fallout with my dad. Brian was sympathetic and hoped for reconciliation, believing that family ties would prevail. However, as Brian and I grew closer, his possessiveness became apparent. He insisted on constant communication, getting upset if I spoke to others. Despite his claims of love and protection, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was part of a game with him. Adding to the complexity was his mother's disapproval of our relationship. It hurt knowing she had negative feelings towards me without having met me. Brian's closeness with his mother, while understandable, made me feel like an outsider. Despite these challenges, the oddest part was his mother's seemingly contradictory desire for us to get married, knowing I had no one else. This made navigating our relationship and his family dynamics all the more complicated. In a whirlwind of misplaced trust and vulnerability, I found myself swept up into a secretive marriage with Brian, a decision driven by his insistence and manipulation. He painted a picture where my father's disapproval and lack of love were given, convincing me that only he truly cared for me. This narrative led me to silently accept a union that I hoped would be my haven, yet it turned into anything but. As the months wore on, a different side of Brian's mother emerged, one that thrived on diminishing me with her harsh words and actions. Initially, I tried to dismiss her cruel remarks as misunderstandings, believing time would soften her view of me. Unfortunately, her disdain only intensified, transforming her into an incessant source of emotional pain. Whether criticizing my cooking, questioning my cleanliness, or belittling my efforts, her intent seemed clear: to make me feel unwelcome and inadequate. Meanwhile, Brian remained detached, lost in his world, leaving me to face this torment alone. This isolation magnified my feelings of helplessness and self-blame. I questioned my strength, lamenting my inability to stand up for myself and missing the father I had pushed away in my confusion and pride. One particularly difficult day, already weakened by illness, I sought solace in sleep, only to be cruelly awakened by a splash of cold water. Brian's mother stood over me, her disdain palpable, scolding me for resting instead of tending to chores. Her slap was a shocking wake-up call, pushing me to a breaking point. At that moment, something within me snapped. I refused to bear the brunt of her cruelty any longer. My outburst, "I am not doing anything for you or your son anymore. I've had enough," marked a turning point. I declared my refusal to be demeaned and disrespected, a cry for dignity from the depths of despair. This realization that I deserved better was a first step toward reclaiming my sense of self, even amidst the wreckage of my choices. Just as I was about to leave, I felt a sudden, sharp pain at the back of my head and everything went dark. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in a dimly lit room, illuminated only by a single bulb hanging in the center. My head throbbed with pain, and when I tried to stand, my legs gave way, sending me crashing to the floor again. Confusion and pain overwhelmed me as I wondered about my whereabouts. Faint, muffled sounds reached my ears, growing louder as they neared. Desperate for any sign of where I was, I crawled towards the noise until I reached a metal door with a small window. Using the door for support, I managed to pull myself up to my feet, just as the latch clicked open. To my horror, Brian stood there, a grin plastered on his face. "Is my wife scared of the dark?" he taunted, clearly enjoying my fear. I pleaded with him, begging to be let out, insisting that this cruel joke had gone too far. But my pleas fell on deaf ears as he coldly informed me that this was my punishment for defying his mother. He claimed he would keep me locked away, cutting me off from the world as retribution. The reality of my situation sank in as he mocked me further, pointing out my isolation and lack of family support. My despair deepened with his harsh words, but a flicker of hope appeared when I felt my phone in my pocket. It was broken, yes, but not completely dead. The screen faintly glowed, offering me a slim chance to call for help. In that dark, cold basement, a mix of fear and resolve surged within me. How had my life spiraled into this nightmare for merely standing up to unjust treatment? Despite the dire circumstances, the possibility of contacting my dad ignited a small spark of hope amidst the darkness. Memorizing my dad's number was a lifeline I never knew I'd need. With hands shaking and tears blurring my vision, I dialed his number, my voice trembling as I recounted the terrifying ordeal, clinging to a sliver of hope that he could rescue me from this nightmare. 3. Agonizing days later, when despair nearly claimed me, the sound of a car outside sparked a faint glimmer of hope. My heart raced as I listened for footsteps approaching. The door finally swung open, and there stood my dad, his presence a towering force of reassurance. Relief flooded through me, mingled with disbelief, as I realized he had come to my rescue, bringing the police with him. Brian was taken into custody, and their attempts to fabricate excuses fell flat. Their fate in court loomed ominously as they faced the consequences of their actions. "You have no idea what awaits you," my dad said, his voice firm, his disappointment and anger palpable. Despite their pleas and lies, the truth was clear. As we left the dark confines of that basement, I felt a surge of courage and resolve. This harrowing experience, though painful, illuminated my strength and the unshakable support of my dad. Resolved to reclaim my autonomy and voice, I vowed to stand tall against any future adversities. The decision to move to Jacksonville with my dad marked a fresh start, leaving behind the shadows of Texas. This ordeal also imprinted a valuable lesson on my heart: to be cautious of online connections and the reality behind screens. A chapter closed on this grim tale, but ahead lay the promise of healing and empowerment, with my dad's steadfast support lighting the way.